Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing another weekly reading update. Before I jump into the weekly reading update, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. One is that I did a video review for Dusch Welch, which is a German broadcaster. They have a book YouTube channel, and so I did a video for them talking about Transcendent Kingdom, and I am terrible and completely forgot to mention it on my channel. I mentioned it on Twitter and Instagram. Never mentioned it here. My bad. So I'll link that up in the cards and down below in case you are interested in checking that out. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if you have been watching me all year long, you might have seen me mention BookTube Prize, and this is basically like a little, book prize thing that one of the members of the community put together to kind of give sort of like a BookTube prize to the fiction books, and this year the nonfiction books that people on BookTube have been talking a lot about. It is focused on adult fiction and nonfiction, but they have the applications open now for if you are interested in being a judge. You don't have to be a content creator in this sense of making actual videos, as long as you are an active participant on BookTube in terms of commenting, watching, all of that stuff. Even if you have your own Instagram, stuff like that, that definitely, can count towards it. But yeah, they have applications open now, or the forum open now, to accept judges for next year's rounds of judging. So I will link up in the cards and down in the description below to that video as well, talking about the judge situation and how it's all going to work next year. There are adjustments being made in terms of the application and how judging will go next year a little bit. So yeah, if you're interested in that, feel free to check that out. All right, now onto the book. Well, kind of onto the books. There's one more thing. Last week I did a video review of His Only Wife, so I just wanted to also briefly mention that I did that thing. So if you haven't seen it already and are interested in that book, definitely check it out. I really enjoyed that book a lot. It really surprised me. So even if you don't watch that video review, I definitely recommend picking up that book, because I feel like it's not being read by a lot of people. This one feels like it's one that's kind of flying under the radar still a little bit. So definitely recommend that book, and you can check out that video review if you want more information on it. All right, now on to the other books that I've read so far in the past couple of weeks. So first up, I have The Searcher by Tana French. This is Tana French's second standalone novel. I don't know how many total books she's put out now, 6 or 7. I've read all of them, and I'm a big fan of Tana French, so I was very much looking forward to this book, and definitely intrigued just because she's putting out another standalone instead of putting out another book in the Dublin Murder Squad series. So it's always interesting to see sort of what an author like Tana French, or mystery writers in general, will do when they're not within the confines of the series that they write and things like that. So in this book, you are following this character named Cal, who is a retired Chicago police officer, and he moves over to Ireland. And the story basically follows him as he is just getting acclimated to this small town in Ireland, when a young kid, maybe 12 years old, I would guess, finds him and asks him to find their missing brother. They know that Cal is a former cop and all this stuff, and this family is on the poor end of the spectrum, and so they don't really get a lot of respect from local authorities. They're not really interested in trying to find this kid, so they come to Cal to see if he's willing to investigate the situation. And so the story is literally just that. You are just following Cal as he goes around the town and tries to find out what exactly is going on with this kid who disappeared, what's going on with this family, and who in the town knows anything and is willing to tell him anything. So I, like I said, have read all of Tana French's books, and I have to say this is probably my least favorite out of all of them. That being said, Tana French is still a really good writer, so a not good Tana French book is still a 3-star book in my opinion. This book is extremely slow moving. If you read The Witch Elm was also extremely slow moving, but this one seems even slower, or even less happens in it. I think because in The Witch Elm there's kind of a building tension. So even though it moves slowly, by the halfway mark, you can tell that all of this tension is building in the story, and it leads to this really amazing ending in my opinion. This book doesn't do that. It basically starts at a 6 and stays at a 6 for the entire book. I actually ended up listening to this one on audiobook because I was having such a hard time with it. Part of it is my 2020 brain. I can't handle books like this very well this year, just because I need something to like grab my attention almost. Not that I need everything to be like super plot heavy or anything like that, but if it's just sort of like a meandering novel, I'm not going to get attached to that this year. So I ended up listening to this one on audiobook, and that legitimately was the only way I would be able to get through this book. And in general, like, I just found it to be very meh. I find Cal to be a very meh lead character, and I found the mystery to be extremely straightforward. Like, the thing with Tana French's books too is that either with the mystery or with the main character that you're following, there's usually like secrets and hidden information and like all of this stuff that eventually gets revealed towards the end of the book, or like something that happens towards the end that like surprises you or anything along those lines. That does not happen with this book. Cal is a pretty boring character. He is from Chicago, and this is probably just something that I'm sensitive to, I guess, or like I noticed more. But the fact that he's like a Chicago cop literally means nothing. It basically just feels like Tana French picked a city in the United States to explain that he is a cop from the United States. There's also like scenes in here that have to do with like the way Black people are treated by police officers that just feel so like thrown in without real thought about what you're saying with those chapters. And like part of me was debating about like how I felt about those chapters, because I think a big part of this book is you are seeing it all from Cal's point of view. And so I think that Cal sees himself as like a good, honest cop and conducts himself in that way while he is doing this investigation. But one, again, you're seeing this all from his perspective, and that's a flawed perspective. And two, like, no one in this Irish town gives a crap. So, like, the vast majority of this book, you're not even getting to watch him be a good cop. You're just watching him wander around this town pretending to be like this dumb American while trying to sniff out information. And I feel like I figured everything out significantly faster than you're probably supposed to, and definitely faster than Cal did, which again just made him look even worse in my eyes. And also, like, everything with the mystery is also super, super straightforward. Like I said, I basically figured, oh, it's probably this that's going on. And it turned out to be literally exactly that. No surprises, nothing of interest, like nothing felt shocking or anything like that. And not that like everything needs to feel shocking, but there needs to be this feeling of like, oh, spending time with these characters and learning about these people and learning about this town or something like that should feel worth it. And it didn't really feel worth it, in my opinion. So yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I know some other people who really enjoyed it just because it builds like this meandering atmosphere, and it's like very like gloomy and whatever, all that stuff. And so I know some people have really enjoyed it, but in my opinion, this is probably the weakest Tana French book I've read. All right, next up, I went in the completely opposite direction and picked up You Had Me At Ola by Alexis Daria. This is a contemporary romance book, and you are following this actress named Jasmine who has basically been like a soap star, and she is about to get a starring role in this new Netflix drama. And so she's like super excited because like this could be like a real breakout moment for her. She's also going through a really hard time because she was dating this musician who basically broke up with her through the tabloids, and so she's basically splashed all over the tabloids. And so she's also hoping that this film will help kind of like not rehabilitate her image, but give her less of a tabloid feel and more of like a leading lady feel, so to speak. The male character that you are following is this guy named Ashton, who is a telenovela star, and he has had a number of starring roles in various like telenovelas over the years. And so he's hoping that this starring role will lead to him being able to make it for American audiences and specifically like start getting Hollywood roles. And so you're following these two characters as, you know, they start to star in this new show and kind of all of the ripple effects that come with it. They both recognize the fact that like in order for this to work, they need to make sure that they have good on-screen chemistry, so that way it becomes a very like believable situation for the audience. So they start, you know, practicing together and stuff like that, and the chemistry between them is extremely strong and leads to more, but both sides of the equation have things that they're holding back, secrets, whatnot, and obviously that leads to complications. So this is a really cute, really fun contemporary romance book. I honestly really, really enjoyed it a lot. I devoured it completely. I am always extremely impressed when writers are able to portray chemistry so well in books. And it's definitely done super, super well in this book. Like from the very beginning of their meeting, like Ashton and Jasmine have great chemistry together, and it's really fantastic. It does give you a little bit of like Jane the Virgin vibes, or gave me a little bit of Jane the Virgin vibes. It's not like at all like Jane the Virgin, but just, you know, the telenovela aspect, focusing on these Hispanic families, things like that. It definitely will give you some of those feels. It's cute, and but it's also like a little bit predictable. I will say I gave it like a 3.5 stars, and the main reason why I like docked it down from 4 stars is because the resolution happens really quickly, in my opinion. That probably could have been like fleshed out a little bit more. I would have enjoyed a little bit of a longer conversation in resolving the miscommunication that happens here, and even just like talking about the implications and the consequences of all of the things that are happening here would have been a little bit more interesting, in my opinion. Also, it is a little bit weird, in my opinion, when actors start dating each other while they're starring on like a TV show together and stuff like that, because that leads to some messy situations. But you know, it's a romance novel, who cares? But yeah, I really, like I said, enjoyed it. It was cute, it was predictable. I'm really hoping that Alexis Daria writes more stories kind of in this world, and specifically Jasmine has like 2 female cousins who she's super close to that you see a lot in this book, and I think like books from their perspectives would be fantastic. All right, next up I have a graphic novel, and that is Here by Richard McGuire. This is another one of the comics that are listed on the best comics of the decade list from AV Club. I will have that website linked down below in case you're interested in seeing that. But the short summary that I always have to give is that my New Year's resolution was to work my way through that list. I gave up on basically all of my New Year's resolutions because 2020, but I'm still like slowly working my way through those comics because it has had me like picking up comics that I wouldn't have picked up otherwise, that are like very well known in the comics world and very well renowned, and also like cross the genre quite a bit. They're all like really, really different from each other. So I'm really glad that I'm reading my way through that list. So anyways, Here was a really, really enjoyable read. This is definitely another one of those that is kind of like pushing the format a little bit and like really unique in nature. The entire story is told basically from this one corner of a house, and so the entire perspective stays the same. Like you are following this house in a specific angle, and it like jumps through time and creates these layers of time and shows you different things that have happened in this space for like hundreds of years and even into the future and stuff like that. It's really cool. So I'll show you a couple of pages to kind of explain. So this is like the house, and in the corner here it says like 1957, and then like down here you see 1999. There's a cat that like walks through the house, and then like as you go through the story it gets more and more complicated. So here the main page is 1995, this corner is 1998, this is 1979, this is 1933 and 2016, and there's like conversations that are kind of overlapping through all of it. You go back into the 1700s, and there's like appearance from Benjamin Franklin at some point. And like it features Benjamin Franklin's son. And then, like I said, it also like goes into the future and shows like what this space looks like in the far, far future. So in 2113, you know, it's completely flooded because, you know, climate change, stuff like that. So it's really cool. It's a really interesting way to tell a story, and especially as a story that's not really centered on a specific character or even a specific family or anything along those lines. It's about this sort of place, and it's about all of the events that have occurred around this single place in a really interesting way. This is not a book that is like narrative heavy by any means or anything along those lines, but the way that this is set up and the way that it's built and all of this stuff, it was fantastic. So yeah, if you haven't picked this up yet, highly, highly recommend it. It's really unique, and I don't want to really like talk about it more than that. One, partially because there is no like through line plot, like I said, so it's not like I can give a single summary, but also I think it's just really fun to kind of see how Richard McGuire layers all of these stories together and layers all of this information together and presents it to the reader. It's really unique, and, you know, something that can specifically only really be done in a comic format like this. So yeah, really fantastic. All right, and then the final book that I just finished is Running by Natalia Sylvester. I picked this up because I actually read another Natalia Sylvester book earlier this year, and I loved that book. And then I heard she had a new contemporary young adult book coming out, and I was intrigued, and I'd heard pretty good things about it, and I will say that I also really, really enjoyed it. So in this story, you are following this character named Mari, or Mariana, who is of Cuban descent. Her father is a state senator in Florida, and he is running for the office of the president. And so the story takes place while the primaries are still happening, and it's specifically leading up to the Florida primaries. Mari has like no interest whatsoever of being in the spotlight, and so because of the fact that her father is running for president, she has to be in the spotlight significantly more, and it leads to like some disastrous situations. It also leads to Mari realizing that she doesn't actually know what her father's political stances are as she starts looking into that and looking into some of these things that are happening in her town and in Florida. She's starting to push back a little bit on her father. So this is, like I said, a really great book. It's a great coming of age story about this like teenage girl. She's probably like 16, 17 years old, just coming into her own and figuring out who she wants to be. She's constantly being told by her parents and like her father's people, whatever, like what she's supposed to say, what she's supposed to think, how she's supposed to express herself, what she isn't allowed to do. And so now she's finally kind of coming into her own and pushing back on those demands and saying what she actually wants out of her life and what she believes in and what her thoughts are on different things that are happening. It definitely has a lot of threads that are based in reality. Some of the events that are talked about in here are actual things that, like actual legislation and stuff like that have passed in Florida. And because I read the book Parkland earlier this year, a lot of the stuff that is talked about in here, like the characters in here, remind me of like the kids from Parkland who have like basically become full-time activists. Part of that whole vibe is happening in here. And then also I was just like reading this yesterday when I was standing in line to vote, and it just like made me really emotional and made me like feel a lot of things. And I think that if you are someone who, I don't know, cares at all about finding your voice, standing up for what you believe in, activism, protesting, any of those sorts of ideas, this is a really great book to pick up. I also think this is a really fantastic book to just have out in the world for teenagers to read. This, along with books like Voting Booth and stuff like that, really great for young adults to be reading, especially like high school kids as they like start to realize what's happening in the world, start to make opinions of their own, and try to hopefully become informed active citizens and stuff like that. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this book. Another great thing about this book is that there's like literally zero romance in here for the main character. It's not a thing she thinks about or worries about or anything like that at all, which is really, really refreshing. There are like other characters in here who are dating people and stuff like that, but she's just not interested in it at the time, and I found that to be really great because I wasn't like super into it when I was a high schooler, and it's kind of nice and refreshing to see that every now and then. So yeah, I highly recommend this book, especially if you are someone who enjoys contemporary young adult books. So that is everything I have for you all this week. I am currently reading The Tropic of Serpents by Marie Brennan. I read the first book in the series, A History of Dragons. I think it's A Natural History of Dragons. I really enjoyed that one, although the ending took a little bit of a dip, but I've heard like the other books in the series are even better than the first book. So yeah, I got the second book from the library, and I'm very excited to keep going with this series. So let me know down in the comments below if you've read any of the books that I talked about here today and what your thoughts and opinions are on them, or if you have any questions about anything I talked about here, feel free to leave that down in the comment section below. As a reminder, links in the description to a bunch of different things, so check that out if you are interested. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.